Hey everyone, welcome back to Neural Notes. And for our very first lesson, I wanted to start from scratch. What is machine learning? So, at the very core of it, machine learning is all about finding patterns and making predictions. But I want to translate that into a musical production language. So, imagine if you're a beginner producer, the first time you've produced a beat. You randomly place different kicks, snares, and hi-hats. And it sounds pretty bad. First time, right? But over time, you start noticing patterns as you're learning the language and learning about music production. You might see that snares sound really good on beats 2 and 4, or that you might see house tracks have kicks on all fours, or some other rules that you subconsciously learn by looking and hearing lots of other songs and learning much more about musical production, right? And I want to translate that back to machine learning because machine learning kind of does the same thing, just with data instead of lots of different songs. Instead of hearing beats, it listens to data like numbers, images, text, and instead of noticing rhythms, it finds hidden patterns. And over time, it gets better at making predictions based on what it has learned. And there's different ways that machine learning can go about finding these hidden patterns. I want to show you that on our DAW right here. Alright, so for our DAW, we're going to be using BandLab throughout the course. BandLab is pretty easy to use, free, and accessible to all, and has a bunch of royalty-free sounds that we can use, making it a really epic thing to use for our course. But feel free to use whatever DAW that you guys feel comfortable with or want to explore. Um, and so with this DAW, for this we'll be exploring supervised learning. And to really kind of drive home the video or the concept, I want you to visualize one scenario. Let's say I want to teach an AI how to classify different types of beats. How would I do it? So, what supervised learning does is that you have these predefined categories and you essentially feed lots of data for those categories so that the AI can learn these underlying patterns and distinguishing features between each category. And so the idea is that when you hear this new song, which you don't know the category, it can pick up these elements that this new song has and compare it with the hidden patterns it's already identified for these different categories, and from that kind of see which has the best fit and match um, across all the categories. And so for us, let's just do some very simple example. I have songs for trap, R&B, and Afrobeat. And so what I want you to do is that observe very closely. The first tune we'll be looking at is a trap beat. And imagine you're an AI hearing this for the first time. Yeah, so you heard that? What I noticed specifically, again, there were a couple of different trap groups in this, but something that I noticed pretty common in all of them is that there's a medium tempo, lots of hi-hat rolls, and deep 808s in all three. That's trap, you know. Let's move on to a different one. New category, R&B. Let's see if we can make out something in here. Alright, so this was R&B. Some stuff I noticed in R&B was that there's a very syncopated drum line, I would say. Lots of strong bass lines, and all throughout lots of reverb. I think that was pretty distinguishing for me for R&B. And so now for the last one, definitely not the least one, a R or a Afrobeat. By the way, guys, if you want to search for any different types of beats, feel free to. I'm just showing you how to do it on BandLab. You just go to the search over here, and you have a bunch of different albums you can choose from. Let's just choose this one. Skip ahead a bit. Alright. Alright, that's pretty interesting. Definitely pretty different from the other two. And I felt like kind of these two contrasting things in all of these different Afro beats we heard. I felt like this really jazzy wood instruments and brass instruments, while a very African heavy percussion section. I heard congas. That was something I didn't hear in the other categories, but pretty strongly in these. And so I'm just giving you an idea of these special patterns that the AI is looking for. And now I want you to imagine that you're not just picking these patterns in a few. You want to be dead sure that the patterns you're picking up really apply to that category. And so what we do as data scientists is feed thousands of these examples into the AI model for each category. And that's how we can really find these patterns. And so with any new beat, we can kind of go back now and really compare very hard on accurate patterns. And that's the beauty of supervised learning. And that's actually how AI is able to recognize speech, classify emails as spam, and even detect objects and images. So it's pretty powerful. And so this is kind of like supervised learning. You're giving the AI lots and lots of different labeled examples. In this case, beats with different genres. And if you listen to many different genres, you start to notice different similarities about these different genres, these different patterns. Same thing with supervised learning. You're learning these patterns with these different labeled data, and you're associating these patterns with different labels. And that way, when you're given any new genre, any new label, you're able to classify them into these different beats. And just like humans, after you after you listen to a lot of music or go through lots of data, you can kind of classify them. And that's exactly what supervised learning does. It's able to classify. And this is actually used in our own day-to-day lives. It's how AI can classify and recognize speech, classify emails as spam or not spam, and even detect different objects and images. But that's one part, or one big part of machine learning. Another very big part of machine learning is unsupervised learning. Remember how we just said supervised learning is when you have all these different predefined categories and thousands of data values for each category? But now I want you to imagine that you have all those thousands of data values, but no predefined categories. You have to make those categories yourselves. That's what unsupervised learning is. And essentially what I mean by creating those categories itself is kind of grouping things together based on commonalities and other patterns you see throughout. And so to show this, I want you to look at one specific beat here. Stay on BandLab again. Alright, so this is a couple of different beats. Couple, I mean a few different, right? But in your mind, I want you to pause the video and think, which beats sound familiar? Why? Imagine you're an AI. Start seeing which things have commonalities, group them together. And so for me, what I noticed, it has to give an example first, right? It might group the first together because of the guitar playing pretty strongly and pretty consistently on the beats. And that kind of makes sense, right? It that felt kind of like rock. But the next one you heard, that felt like much more of an acoustic guitar. But not necessarily the same sound, same strong guitar, but different sounding guitar. And we heard that in a couple other tunes that we played in the pack. That's why we can kind of see by that patterns of the guitar in these things, we can kind of separate kind of like rock and country. And that's exactly what we're doing in AI. We're looking at these different features. Oh, a lot of these things look the same, a lot of these things look different, and just grouping them. And that's what's unsupervised learning. The beauty of this is that the AI doesn't need labels. It just needs it just finds those similarities on its own. But you might be thinking, then why bother creating those categories for supervised learning? And the answer is, well, if you have those predefined categories, A, you might get more results that are more meaningful to you and have a bit of expectation following that. Unsupervised learning is more prone to like it's because there's so much freedom involved in it, it may not give you the most meaningful results, but it's used when you don't really know what you want. You want the AI to take that freedom. That's what you have to, when you're using these different methods, you have to see what do you have, what do you want, and which algorithm would fit those categories. And yep, thank you. That is all for lesson of supervised and unsupervised learning. See you in the next lesson, and don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button.